Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about the future of The Legend of Zelda and how Princess Zelda may be playable in future releases. Earlier this month we got an interview between IGN and the series producer Eiji Aonuma, where he was asked about the future of Zelda and if she could be playable in some way. And he had some choice words that I found very interesting. And with that in mind and other things going on lately with what we've been speculating on related to Zelda, I have some ideas in terms of how they may go about doing that. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So here is the question presented to Eiji Aonuma. I want to talk a little bit about Zelda for a moment. I remember when the trailer first appeared, my first thought was, oh, now Zelda's adventuring too. Maybe this is co-op, maybe Zelda will be playable. But of course, she had her own story in Tears of the Kingdom. What do you think of the desire among fans for Zelda to have a bigger role, and to even be playable? Aonuma responds, yeah, it is interesting when you think about the name of the series, The Legend of Zelda. But Link is always the main character, Zelda has always been involved, and they have a relationship and their own rules in each of the games. But it is true that I think there's always room for thinking about this type of thing and Zelda's role, and there may be some sort of possibility for something like that in the future. And then supposedly he interjected because it's all being translated, and he said himself directly, in English, maybe, maybe, maybe. And so, what is my takeaway from that? There's a few. When it comes to that maybe, maybe, maybe part, I think that's just Aonuma trying to quell expectations and not trying to get people to think, oh, it's confirmed the next Zelda release is going to have playable Zelda. That's not what he said. Really what he said is that there are all sorts of possibilities. There's a number of scenarios where I personally could see Zelda become playable in some way, shape, or form. Just thinking about Tears of the Kingdom, I also remember seeing that trailer, and it did get me wondering, is Zelda going to play a more significant role with this game? And there was a lot of speculation that she might be playable in some way, shape, or form. And without spoiling too much, Princess Zelda is definitely involved with the gameplay in the beginning of the game and towards the end of the game. And you do see this character throughout the story and the gameplay all throughout. So Princess Zelda is far more involved in Tears of the Kingdom than she was in Breath of the Wild. In fact, I will even go as far as saying that this is arguably the most involved Zelda has ever been, outside of maybe Spirit Tracks, where she was literally a part of the recurring gameplay gimmick throughout the game. And actually thinking on this more so, there have been other times where Zelda has been involved with the gameplay. I think back to the final fight in The Wind Waker, or one of the final fights in Twilight Princess. There's a history of Zelda being involved with the final boss fight. But while there may be some history here, and Tears of the Kingdom definitely shows a more involved Zelda with the overall game, will she ever actually be playable? Will we ever actually be able to control her directly? And I think the answer to that is eventually, yes. Now, I don't think that there will ever be a mainline Zelda game, at least in the foreseeable future, where Link will not be the main character that you control and play as. And that's for several reasons, one of which having to do with how the story is and the foundation for what the Zelda team considers The Legend of Zelda to be. But also, playing a Legend of Zelda game where you don't get to play as Link for most of the game would be kind of like playing Super Mario, where you don't get to play as Mario for most of the game. But some may argue, well, Super Mario is called Super Mario. The Legend of Zelda is not called The Legend of Link. But then I'll also say, well, there's also Metroid. You don't play as Metroid, you play as Samus. And technically, the first time Mario was in a game was Donkey Kong, where, again, the antagonist was the name of the game, not the main character. That all said, while I think Link is always going to be the main character, that doesn't mean Zelda can't have her own spin-off series or be playable in moments. Look at Princess Peach Showtime. That's a spin-off series, and Peach is fully playable there. She is the main character. And so maybe in the future we could get something like that. A while back, we heard about a canceled project where Retro Studios was working on some sort of Zelda spin-off where you would play as a Sheikah. And what's interesting about that to me is that Sheik from Ocarina of Time is actually Princess Zelda. So what if they made a game where you play as Sheik, or Zelda trained under the Sheikah to be a ninja like them so she can be in disguise but still kick butt, and that's its own side adventure? Or, here's another crazy idea. You know that theorized Ocarina of Time remake we've been talking about? Or if you didn't, we've been theorizing it for a little bit. There are some rumors, but I like to think of it as a solid theory. If and when that eventually comes, what if this is a little bit more like a reimagining as opposed to just like a visual overhaul, and they add some new playable scenarios, including Playable Zelda, where she plays as Sheik, where we see those moments in between, and we get to play as Sheik when Link is not around. That would be a very fun and exciting perspective. But then going back to Tears of the Kingdom, obviously that game's already out, and from what we've heard, they're not going to be going back and making any changes with the DLC or anything like that. But we speculated that perhaps Zelda could be playable in moments. Like, what if they had made all the memories of the past playable? Not for significant durations, but maybe a few minutes at a time. And since the memories are optional, that wouldn't really take away from the open format that is Tears of the Kingdom. And so since we basically know the Zelda team is going to continue with the open format, they may incorporate some linear format ideas even better into future releases, but the games will still be open. Maybe in the future, they will have some optional moments that deliver some significant story, but also are playable, and you play as Princess Zelda. I can see that happening in a mainline game. So between the possibility of a spin-off like Princess Peach Showtime, or that canceled Retro Studios project, or just making Zelda playable in certain story moments in a future mainline Zelda release, I definitely see it happening sometime down the road. But what do you think? What do you make of the possibilities for Princess Zelda being playable in future games? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.